Good evening, morning, still morning, good morning. I knew it was one of them, just didn't know which one it was. It's been a while since I have did a live. Had a few people pop on and ask me about water slides, so I figured I would completely stop my day to get on to help with this water slide deal. I know water slide, it can be I don't know what the right word is for it. It can be intimidating, I guess is the right word for people who don't know how to use it. And typically when I make my tutorials or when I do my tutorials are primarily did when the water slide is already printed. I'm just showing you how to get it sprayed. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to start from part A all the way to part Z when it comes to the water slide. So this will be a lengthy video. Hopefully it'll be no more than 30 minutes. Hopefully we can end it in about 30 minutes, but of course it's completely contingent upon the water slide itself. I was waiting on just this one person that's been on me about this. Good morning, Kellyanne. How are you? Miss Sandra. How are you today, Miss Campbell? I see a few people from the 5 and 1 group that we had is on here. Extremely proud of the cups that y'all are pushing out. Extremely proud of the cups that y'all are pushing out. And just for the guys that don't know about the 501 classes that we host, it's pretty much we just randomly get 5 people from the group who's never did cups before or who wants to improve on their cups. And it's just me, 2 of my other moderators, and 5 people where we're just completely hands-on with showing you how to do tumbling pretty much basically one-on-one. We try to push them out at least by every Monday because Monday's typically my off day. And I think this upcoming class on Monday is already full. So beyond that, kind of get in where you fit in. My back, I honestly think it's something more than what the medication can take care of because I'm only surviving off the medication at this point. It's like if it wasn't for the medication, my back would be completely pounding, which is what it's doing right now. But I did promise this water slide tutorial, so I figured I had to go ahead and hop on and get that did now. Thanks for asking, though. We'll go ahead and hop into it now because I don't want this video to be much longer than what it is. What we're going to be working on today is pretty much a water slide. This is what a water slide is, or how a water slide looks once it's on the cup. This cup was made, but something happened, so it never went out. So I'm just going to be using the back side of this cup pretty much. It's already been epoxy and it already has the glitter already on it. You can't water slide directly on top of glitter. You always have to make sure that you get your first coat of epoxy on before you get started with it. There are 4 different types of water slide paper that you can purchase. 4 different types that you can purchase. And the 4 different types that you can purchase is a white decal that is transparent for inkjet, and they have a white decal that's transparent for a laser printer. Those are 2 of them. The third one is going to be transparent for inkjet, which is the third, and the fourth is going to be a transparent for the laser printer. So the printer that we're going to be using today is pretty much a basic laser printer. The one that we're going to be using today is pretty much a basic laser printer that I purchased. It is the Canon Pixma MG2522, pretty much just a basic inkjet printer. I think we purchased this printer for $19 at Walmart, if I'm not mistaken. So because we do have the inkjet printer, we've got the inkjet paper to go along with it. The paper that, not necessarily saying that you have to purchase this paper, but this paper right here, I almost swear by this paper. It is the cheaper of the brand, but this paper, it dries really quick and it comes off really good. That's just me personally. Not saying that you have to go with this specific type of paper, but this is just the type of paper that we use. This is the white water slide paper for inkjet. Now, if you had a laser printer, you want to get the white waterslide paper, and this versus it saying inkjet, it will say laser. So just always make sure you pay attention. This is the most important part when you're looking for waterslide paper, whether you have the inkjet printer and contingent upon the color that you want. We've got both of them. We've got a white and we have a transparent. This one is the transparent one. Of course, you can see where it says transparent, and it's for the inkjet printer. And this one is for white, and it's for the inkjet printer. Always make sure that whatever paper it is that you're shopping for, you have that printer, the same printer that goes with it. That's the most important part. Now, what we're going to be working on is we're going to be working with the transparent, because we're going to be putting it on a light colored cup. And because we're putting it on a light colored cup, we're going to be using the transparent paper. If you were to try to use this transparent paper on a dark cup, it doesn't always come out as bright as you like it to be. That's the reason why you always go with white waterslide paper whenever you're working with dark colors, because it actually, the white waterslide paper actually holds the image a lot better than the clear. The clear, of course, you can see through, but the white you can't see through. So I just wanted to show you that. What we're going to be working is the transparent. So I'll set that one to the side. And we're going to be working with the transparent waterslide today. I'm going to start you from part A to part B as far as the design. I've already got the design put together that's in Design Space. So if you have whatever specific design you want, you can always just hop on Google, Love SVG, Kiss PNG. I mean, there's a lot of sites out there that offer images contingent upon whatever it is that you want to use, or you can just make your own, kind of like the one that I did. I made this one because I don't know, I was bored one day, so I made it. So we're going to go ahead and hop into it. Let me get a cut. There we go. There we go. So this is the image that we're going to be using. This image has already been uploaded into Design Space. This is one of the images that I made. I think we did a tutorial on this image, if I'm not mistaken. But this is one of the images that I had previously created. Hey, love. Chris. Stacy, how are you? I guess before I even get started, because I haven't been on in a while. But how was everybody New Year's? How was everybody New Year's? How was everybody Christmas? Mine was great up until the New Year. Then something just happened to my back. Don't know what happened to it, but it just completely spazzed out on me. Stacy, that's what I buy. It's the best. I totally agree with that. Okay, I have the same one. I'm going to hook up in an hour. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back into it now that we've got the hellos and the Christmas is out of the way. So we're going to be working on the 20-ounce skinny cup, and on the 20-ounce skinny cup, I've already did my measurements. Typically, it's no more than a 3x3 when it comes to these, contingent on how big you want it. But for this, we're going to make it just a little bit bigger for illustration purposes, because this isn't going to stay on this cup. This is just primarily for this tutorial purpose, pretty much. Felix, how are you? I want that shirt he has on. Yeah, I got a pretty psychotic wife. Psychotic more so. But hey, we'll stick with hot. So when you have your images, it's extremely important. Let me get the grids back up for the people who use the grids. I'm not a grid person. Okay, so now we got the grids back up. So for the people who use the grids, in order to make sure that your design is right, I'm going to make this just a bit bigger versus going with 3x3 that I typically do. Just make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. We're going to go, my computer's extremely, so I'm halfway back. I'm getting it. We're going to go with, it's froze up over there with me. There we go. I don't know where that other piece came from. Let me get that out real quick, and then we can get back into it. I swear, I promise my computer just kind of does its own thing. Let me pull back up another image really quick. You know what? We'll just go with that image. If you have any questions on waterslide, now is the best time to ask those questions. So we're pretty much just going to go with our logo. I'm pretty much just going to go with my logo on this one. Of course, you have to hit the unlock in order to adjust the size of it for those that don't know, or those that haven't even cracked open their Cricut yet. And I'm going to just blow up the screen. Always start my image up in the top, in the upper right hand corner. That gives me my true dimensions. And I'm going to just downsize it from here. We're going to do 3.5 by pretty much a 4 is what we're going to be printing. And because I have so much paper, or because because the paper is so big and I didn't cut my paper down to size, I'm going to duplicate this image and cut 2 of them on the same paper, on the same page pretty much. So now that we have this, you don't have to flip these images. Now there is a way that you can flip the image in order to slide the water slide onto the cup, but I'm not going to show you that right now. I'm going to show you the hard way on how to do it, and maybe I can come back on another day and show you an easy way on how to do it. But this is the standard way on how to do it, but there is a different way on how to do it, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. We're going to go ahead and get through this one now. And we will go ahead and go to make it. The screen is too big, so I can't see it. Click make it up in the upper right hand corner. Now, my printer is already connected to my computer, my printer here. I just need to get my paper put into it. Sorry, I was showing my mom that just a second ago. We're going to go with the transparent paper. Now, this is how I can tell what side I'm supposed to be printing on. You can see a really, really dull side here, but it's got kind of a shine to it on the transparent paper. And on the back of it is more so kind of like cardboard. So you always make sure you print on the, I guess, the shinier side of it on your clear, just in case you get it mixed up and you don't know which side you're supposed to print on. This is the shinier side compared to the back being the dull side. So I'm going to just slide my shiny side into my printer like such. And here are the 2 images that I have. And of course, you're going to have that black box around it because it's going to be the score box that it needs in order to cut it out. The good thing about using white transfer paper is because you, hey, Robin, how are you? Sharonda, I'm glad you made it on. The good thing about using the clear transfer papers, you don't need your Cricut to cut it. You can actually cut it by hand. And if you need to readjust these or move these around, you can always readjust them or move them at this point, just in case you do need to move around or whatever the case it is. I'm just showing you for illustration purposes only. Looks like I could have actually got 4 in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go back and add 2 more onto it. That way I'm not wasting paper, because we always go back and reuse these. Four isn't gonna work because the wifey's too much. So I'm gonna take off 2 of them. And I want some space in between it so they don't overlap each other. So now that I have it, it has an option. I guess let's go back. Let me explain one thing to you real quick. So over in your corner right here, where you have the option to cut and print, you always need to make sure that you have that print there, because if it doesn't say print, that is not going to print. So you always have to make sure that the image is printable and not just a cut image. Right now, this is going to be a cut and print, but you always have to make sure that the image you're using is a printed image and not a cut image, FYI. Always make sure of that. And we will go over to make it. Somebody asks, how did I do that? If you post, how did I do what? I'm sure somebody can answer you in there. The water slide paper, it can be reused if you cut it beforehand. That way you're not putting that black score mark around the whole piece of paper, where if I were to cut it, then I can always use just that piece of paper for whatever, if I'm going to be putting a water slide on something else and I don't want to use the whole piece of paper. So now that we're here, up in the lower corner, it say continue. When you first select make it and this comes up and you've got your score box around it, then you know you're good for a cut. You don't have to mirror this, so we'll just go down to continue. When you go down to continue, it'll ask you if you want to send it to print. Now, just really quick, when it comes to water slide, there's no additional steps that you have to take in order to make sure that your printer is plugged into your Cricut, because somebody had asked me that. Somebody asked me how were they supposed to plug their computer and their Cricut in at the same time, or how were they supposed to plug the Cricut into the printer into the Cricut. In a case like this, you just pretty much, this right here is my printer cord, and if you had your Cricut connected to it, then your Cricut would just be connected into it also at the same time. So it's nothing special that you have to do. It's just that you just need to have a printer. That's all, for those who don't know. How did you resize or move the image in print mode? Oh, you just move it over pretty much. It's not that hard. Why? I don't want to say it's not that hard. For the people who don't understand, it may be at that point. But you just move it over from side to side. I'll go back to it and show you that again on another side. But I do want to go ahead and get this printed off. Okay, so in a case like this, when we're on this screen, it asks you to select your Cricut device. On my clear water slides, I cut my paper by hand. I never use the Cricut to cut it because it's clear. So just as long as you're cutting it decently, then you're good to go. It's not going to leave all that excess. But the white, you do have to cut it with your Cricut, unless you're really good and you want to cut it by hand. So if you have a Cricut connected, you just select your Cricut up here. Mine would typically be Bluetooth. We've got a couple of them. So mine will be Bluetooth and I will connect it, but I'm not going to be using my Cricut. I'm just going to be printing mine is all I'm going to be doing. Now, if you've already printed it, and you're just ready to cut it, then you just come over here where it say I've already printed, and it will take you straight to the cut screen. But in this case, we need to send it to the printer. So what we're going to do is we're going to select send to printer here. And now that we've got it into print mode, up here is going to, where the printer is, it tells you what, let me see if I can get it to focus. It tells you what kind of printer you're going to be using. There you go. It tells you what kind of printer that you're going to be using. We're going to be using the Canon that I just showed you that's already connected, the MG2500 series. Now, if you want to print multiple copies of this at this point, then this is where you print multiple copies of it. But in this case, we're only going to be using one. It asks if you want to add bleed. Anytime that I'm cutting by hand, I always take my bleed off, because if you add the bleed, it's going to give you that access for sometimes, like when your Cricut is not cutting exactly right, but it's cutting off just a little bit, you have that bleed on there, and that bleed helps you because it bleeds the image. But because we're cutting it by hand, we're going to turn that bleed off. Now, I know a lot of people probably don't know what the system dialog is. We're not going to get into that right now. Of course, at some point when we talk about sublimation, or when I come back and we talk about sublimation, I'll tell you what the system dialog is and how you use the system dialog. So now that we've got to this point, pretty much all we're going to do is we're just going to select print. And once we select print, it's going to automatically send it over to our printer. I hate how you can move the page to a different page. It's gonna stay up, so you'll be good to, you can always go back and rewatch it. So now it's printing. I didn't do anything special to it. I just send it to printer from my Cricut, and once I send it to Cricut on my printer, it's gonna print out our image here. All right. Yeah, Stacey, I hate how you can't move it to different pages either, kind of like with the regular cut. That sucks. When you used to be, well, I don't think it's ever been an option where you can move it over. Okay, so now that we've already sent it to the printer, it's asking me, it's telling me now that because it's already been printed and the computer knows that it's been printed, it's asking me here, it say to continue, please connect your Explorer. That's only if the Explorer is going to be cutting out your image, but our Explorer is not going to be cutting out our image because we're cutting ours by hand, so it's no need for anything like this. But if you are using a white water slide, then you continue through with connecting your printer and putting it on there, but always make sure that your printer is aligned. That's the most important part of it. Boy, that hurt. All right. So the next step in what we're going to be using is we're going to be using an acrylic sealer, or we're using the Mod Podge acrylic sealer. Not necessarily that you have to use this specific brand. It is a waste of paper. I totally agree. That's why I typically cut mine down to size beforehand. But we're going to be using the clear acrylic sealer. We're going to be using the gloss. And this is the same thing that you use to seal your glitter whenever you're making cups. Same difference, same thing. You can use triple thick. There is a brand, another spray paint brand that I think we got outside, which is just a clear enamel is what it is. You can use that, but it's just pretty much to just, this is what we're using to pretty much to seal our images in. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut mine down to size now, or just cut off the side piece of paper because I can always use that additional piece of paper that's going to be on this side. So I'm going to cut that off real quick. Because if you're making a cup or whatever, if you're making a water slide for a cup, you can always use that same piece of paper, contingent on how big you need it. But if you spray this piece of paper with this sealer and turn around and put it back into the printer, I've never did it before, but I can only imagine that it's not going to print right. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my boxes off. Most people don't do this part. Most people just go ahead and go in for the spray, which, I mean, it's solely up to you and whatever it is that you want to do. And I'm only going to be using one of these, so I'm going to cut one of them off. So I'm going to cut one of them off, and we're only going to be working with just this one. Now, the most important part about this right here, I'm going to use that piece. I'm going to actually put this piece on a coffee cup just because you told me I couldn't do it. I'm going to show you how. So what we're going to do now is we're going to lightly spray this about 3 or 4 times. I typically do it about 5 times, but with this paper actually dries pretty quick and the spray takes really well on it. So it's not a necessity, or for people who don't know how, I mean, if it behooves you, if it makes you feel better in order to spray it 5 or 6 times, then definitely go ahead and go for it about 5 or 6 times. But in this case, we're going to spray it about 3 times. So I'm going to take it outside really quick, and I'm going to just give it a quick once over because I don't want to spray it inside of the house. So if you have any questions at this point, go ahead and ask me some questions, because while this is drying, then we can have that conversation. All right. So we got the first coat on it. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's kind of glossy at this point. It's a bit glossy. There you go. You can see it more so than our original one. That hasn't been sprayed. This one haven't been sprayed, but this one have been sprayed, so you can see the glosses on it. So pretty much the purpose of this spray is there's a really thin, transparent piece of paper, that a really thin, transparent slide that's on top of this cardboard paper. So you just have to make it where the spray is holding that paper together, because if you were to just take this and put it into water, it's definitely going to break and tear apart. So the spray actually helps the paper stay together in that case. You're going to spray the picture side. Yes, you spray the picture side what's the brand of paper you're using. You missed that. The brand of paper that we're using is going to be Hayes Paper Company. I make absolutely no money off them to promote them. I'm just always with good business, and in this case, we get this from Amazon, and it's cheap, so this is where we get it from. This is what we use. We use the Hayes paper. They make it. I don't know if they make the laser, but I'm sure they do. We don't have a laser printer, so we don't use the laser printer. We use everything in inkjet. So we've got the white and we have the transparent, but always make sure that whatever the one it is you're using is the right one, whether it be transparent or whether it be the white. So make sure that's the most important part. Always make sure that you're either using the white or the transparent, the inkjet or the laser printer. My computer will not let me use the leftover paper. I've used it before, but I guess we'll try it again and see how it works. Yeah, they do have lasers. So because they do have lasers, then you're good to go. Now, you never want to cake this down and just keep spraying it and spraying it and spraying it. You always want to let it dry. When I'm in a rush, I typically take my heat gun and just go over it real quick and go back out and spray it again. But in this case, I'm not going to do that because I want y'all to see how it's supposed to be did. If you have a laser printer, then of course you don't have to go through all this. The laser printer doesn't need a sealer. It doesn't need to be sealed on a laser printer. What the heck, I have that kind. I need to buy the Mod Podge spray then because my triple thick doesn't work. I've never used triple thick, but I've heard people do use triple thick. I've always used the Mod Podge spray, and I always use the gloss. You can get the matte, but I like the gloss, and we use the gloss even on our tumblers also because it gives it a shine more so than it dulls it with the matte. So that appears to be dry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it back out one more time, and I'm going to give it one more once over. We're going to do this about 3 times in order to make sure that we get it sealed in pretty good. So how do you put the extra paper back into the printer for later? It's got these slides in it, especially this one. It's got these slides in it where you could move it over and it'll sit in there, right? At least on this one. This is the one that I did it on. That way your paper don't move from side to side. You just move it over, put your paper in, but it has to be the right size, though. I mean, it has to be the right size for what you print. And put it in there, that way it doesn't move around or come out while it's printing. It worked once and didn't work this time. Let me go back out and give it a spray really quick, and I'll be right back. Now, mind you, even when you're spraying it, you don't want to overspray as far as have the spray cake up on top of it, because that can be a bad thing. So make sure you never overspray it when you're doing it. Just give it a couple of light spurts, but make sure you make sure you get it all over the whole thing. And then once you do that, just sit it down and let it dry. I mean, typically I let it dry by hand, which takes about 5 minutes. But in this case, we're just putting a little bit of fan on in order to speed that process up. People saying triple thick didn't work for them. I've never used triple thick, so I don't know how triple thick works. So I can't speak for triple thick, but I can speak for the Mod Podge spray and let you know that that does work, and it's never let me down. This is just drying it. If you have a hair dryer, if you've got, if you're working on shirts, you can just throw it under your heat press and just let the heat get it a little bit. Or if you have a heat gun, you can use a heat gun. But traditionally, the best way to do it is just let it do it on its own. Let it go the natural way versus adding the heat to it in order to do it. Because sometimes you can add the heat and it'll end up shrinking the paper. And if you shrink the paper, then it'll be hard for the paper to come off. Or you can burn the paper onto the transfer. This is just like vinyl is what it is. You've got your vinyl on one side and you got your transfer sheet on the other side. And I'm just using that as an example. So the transfer sheet, which is the cardboard back, and it comes off. And then you're going to be using the paper on front. is what we're doing. It's pretty much what it is. It's a sticker is what it is. I guess that's the best way to say it. I'm assuming that everybody's on here. You won't have any questions about water slide once I'm done, because nobody's asking any questions. Out of all the people who's inboxed me and asked me, how do you do it? You can always feel by touch, and I touch just the inconspicuous piece that I'm going to be cutting off to make sure that it is dry, and it does look dry at this point. So I'm going to take it back outside one more time to give it another once over. All right, so that makes our third time. Hopefully it's going to be my last time. I typically spray it about 5 times just to be on the safe side, but that's just me. The more you use, the better sometimes it come out, and it holds up a little bit better, especially for those who don't know how to do it. And you're constantly moving it around and moving it around and moving it around. It always makes it thick. Are you going to die? You're going to die because your eye is hurting? Okay. I just did my first water slide the other night. I'm so happy. Good job. I'm late. The video is going to be here, Belinda. It's not going to go anywhere. I've gone water slide before. My only issue was it was not enough spray. Yeah, if it's not enough spray, then it'll start tearing apart, or it'll start stretching, or the colors will start to come off. So the whole purpose of the sealer is to make sure that you keep it all together. I'm going to take it out and spray it one more time just for my safety, in just a sec. Hey, Jessica. Made your first water slide. Whoop, whoop. Look at you. It doesn't take long for that spray to dry. And if you touch it and it's sticky, that lets you know that it's not ready. But I'm touching it and it's not sticky, so that lets me know that it's good to go. I'm going to take it out one more time and spray it one more time, and then we can go for it. Go plug it up in your room. Thank you for this video. Water slide scares the hell out of me. Yeah, it can be intimidating. It really can be. Do you ever have a problem with your printer printing colors after you printed water slides? Do you ever have a problem with your printer printing colors after you printed water slides? No, it's just a water slide is no different than any other paper, so the printer shouldn't give you any issues or anything like that just because you printed on a water slide. It should be the same difference. I'm just joining. My water slides are hit and miss. Question: how much time in between spraying? That's the most important part. I'm glad somebody actually asked that question. That is the most important question when it comes to water slide. And her question was, I'm just joining. My water slides are hit and miss. How much time in between spraying? I typically say about 5 minutes. Typically, this doesn't take that long to dry, or the spray doesn't take that long to dry, but you can always just touch it. And if it's still sticky, I'll show you case in instance. I just went and sprayed this one here, and if you touch it here in the corner, it's still sticky over here. See how if I touch it, it lifts up? That lets you know that it's not ready. But if you touch it over here, it doesn't lift up. It's still wet. Now, I don't advise you to touch the actual image. Now, the part that I touched, I'm going to end up cutting it out because I don't want it on there. But typically, you let it sit for about 5 minutes in between sprays in order to make sure that it dries right. But just let it sit there and do its thing. You never want to rush the water slide, because if you rush the water slide and you end up breaking the water slide and you end up messing up the water slide, then you get upset at yourself and you just don't want to go back and do it anymore because you feel like, oh, I fucked up, so I'm just not going to do it again. But hit and misses, that's a trial. But I'm glad you didn't stop. I've used the triple thick, and it's a hit and miss. Triple thick, I can't answer for. I've never used it before. I hear a lot of people on here say that triple thick sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work. This has never failed me. So my suggestion is to try this. And if it works for you, it works for you. But the triple thick, you may be spraying too much on it, because even with this, if you spray too much on it, it's not going to work right. It's just it's a miss. A few miss on the paper, and that's it. You don't want to go too much on it. Can you print water slides on sublimation paper? No, I've never did it. I don't know if you can or if you can't, but this is just my logic of thinking. You can't print water slides on that paper, because that paper is not a 2-part paper. It's just a 1-part paper. So it's not going to work. Now, if you're going to be using the complete piece of paper, like using the sublimation ink, then just turn around and let it sit under your printer, cut it out and put it in your cup. You can do that, I'm assuming, but you still have to seal it. But no, I wouldn't suggest that. You can use regular paper, print it on regular paper, and just seal that regular paper and put that regular paper onto a cup without having to use the water slide. You can do that before, but I've never heard of using the sublimation paper. Do you have to seal printable vinyl? Is that the same printable vinyl that you're going to be using for HTV? If you're using it for HTV purposes, then no, you don't seal it. The water slide has a backing that comes off, so no to the sub paper. That's what I thought too. I've never tried it before, but I know a lot of people who are willing to try just random things, so there you go. She said, printer, not print. Oh, can you use a sub printer to print water slides? Yeah, you can, but your image isn't going to be vibrant though, because of course, you know, whenever you're using a sub printer, your sub print comes off dull until it's activated by the heat. So if you take your sub paper, if you take your water slide paper, put it into a sub printer, you have to take that and put it beneath the heat, or maybe you can use a heat gun and heat it up in order to bring the colors through. I've never tried it, but I want to try it now just because you said it. It's worth to try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But yeah, you can use it, you can print it, and you can seal it, but your colors aren't going to be as vibrant as you want them to be. Thank you. I think that's my main issue. I'm not letting it dry. I use triple thick mist only, no problem. Well, there you go. If you miss it, I think it'll be fine. I mean, triple thick has to be pretty much the same difference as this. But if you're spraying too much on it, then of course it's going to be too thick, because of course the name triple thick. So it looked like we're good and ready to go on here. If you can tell, it's got a really, really shiny top to it now because we've sprayed it, compared to one that we did not spray. It doesn't have, it's got a shine to it only because of the paper, but it doesn't have that glossy shine to it because we've sprayed this one multiple times. There you go. You can tell the difference now. I'm just gonna make sure that it's dry, and then we're gonna go through with the hand cutting process so I can show you how I do it, or how I cut it by hand. Can I assist you? Okay, go back and play. All right, so I have my water here already. The water that we're going to be using is room temp water. It's not cold water. It's not hot water. It's room temp water. Or if you just get it straight from the faucet, it's the same difference as room temp water. You have to make sure that the circumference of whatever you're using is going to be big enough in order for you to submerge the paper directly into it. And I'm going to cut this down. I'm going to cut this down just a little bit because I don't want it that big. All right, so we've got our water here. Hopefully you can see it decently. I didn't drink your Gatorade. All right, so I'm just gonna take it and just go ahead and dunk it into the water. Sometimes it do like to roll up. Some people is fine with it rolling up, but I don't like mine rolling up. So I just hold on to it for a second. It needs to be in there for about 30 to 45 seconds. Completely submerged into the water. Kind of like how it is here. I like to make sure that I keep it underwater. I don't think I put enough water into it. I don't think I put enough water in it, but you can see where the water is, because you always want to make sure that the water slide itself is completely submerged in water. You don't want parts of it sticking out and parts of it inside of it. You want to make sure that it's completely submerged inside of the water, which is kind of the way that it is now. And if it's not, then you need to add more water into it, but always don't pour water into it as it is now, because this water is already set. And if you put more water into it, then you're going to end up shocking the water. And sometimes it may mess up the papers. Not always, but sometimes it may mess up the paper. So I let it sit in there for about 45 seconds. And now that it's been in there, what I'm going to do now is take my cup that I'm going to be working on and wet it just a hair bit, or a good bit, not just a hair bit, to make sure that it has to be wet also in order for the paper, just in case you want to move the paper around. It's always good for it to be wet. And what I do at this point is put the water slide on the cup with the backing on it, and kind of play with the top of the water slide. Move this out of the way, to make sure that it's going to slide off. And once I know that it's going to slide off, I pretty much just take the paper, hold on to the top of the water slide, and just slide the paper from beneath it while the water slide itself is on the cup. Never work with dry hands whenever you're working with a water slide. Always make sure that you're working with wet hands, because you don't want it to dry up on you, or you don't want to mess up the water slide. So at this point, I am just readjusting the water slide to make sure that I get it on there the way that I want to get it on there. And I'm taking my hand lightly. You can use a brush for this part also, but I'm just going to be using my hand for it to just hold on to one side of it, not pulling too hard, but just to make sure that I don't have any water beneath it. And when I am satisfied with it, I just let it sit. And as it sits, it will dry. It will eventually begin to dry. But I'm going to take a rag really quick and go over the top of it. Just a damp rag. I'm going to get actually a paper towel. Hey, Zayden. Zayden. You know what? Yes. Can you give me a paper towel up there? You just want one? Yes. If you are heavy-handed, always just use a brush. Never use don't use your hand if you know you're heavy-handed. It's not even worth messing it up. That's fine. Thank you. That's okay. So I'm just gonna take this paper towel and just pat dry it, making sure that I don't move it around though. As you can see, it's still wanting to move on its own. Just making sure I get it on there right. Making sure I take all that water that's beneath it from it. And I think I am completely happy with that job. Trying to get the computer, the camera to focus. There we go. And it gets on there and it's on there perfectly. And that is pretty much how you do a water slide. And it's always great when you use white glitter because the colors look freaking phenomenal. The way that the glitter sparkles through. It looks amazing the way that those colors come through. Tried to refocus it again. And there you have it. That's a water slide. Do we have any questions as far as the water slide goes? And because we did put a lot of spray on it, it allows the water slide to move around a bit freely. You've only got a certain amount of time that you can play with the water slide before the water slide actually starts to adhere to the cup. So always make sure that you get it on there the way you want it. And unlike my wife, when she first started, when she was working on cups, she'd sit there and she'd just mess with the cup and 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 mess with the cup until she wasn't satisfied, until she finally just screwed the cup up. So don't play with it. Once you get the water slide on there and the water slide is on there the way you want it, then let it go. Now, what you do from this point is let it dry. I typically let it dry for maybe like an hour or whatever. Sometimes some people don't do that, but I like to be on the safe side. You can always come back to it once it's actually keyed to the cup and just see if you can move it. And if you can move it, that means it's not dry. So just leave it be as it is. Or just go work on something else for right now. Or either you can pat it or you can take a heat gun to it and just make sure that you get it on there pretty dry and it's actually going to stick to the cup. And then you go ahead and put another coat of epoxy on top of it. Damn, I missed it. Amanda, it's going to be up there. So you can always go back and watch it. Sharonda, I'm a bit complex to you because you were the one that asked me to get on here and do this. And you weren't even on here to watch it. So you don't have to put anything over it. No, you don't have to seal this at this point. Or I don't seal it at this point. I let it be. I just sit there and let it dry. So I don't put any sealer on it. Some people may tell you they do sealer, but I don't do sealer. What's on the other side is just something that another water slide, something we made for a cup and a mishap happened. So the cup is just here. I see everyone is using a silicone brush from the Dollar Tree to remove the extra water from the slide. Yes, you can. Also, have you tried the mirror method? I have tried the mirror method, but I didn't want to start off with showing the mirror method. I feel like if you can get this method down, which is the same as the mirror method, you put it on there, you just slide it off. It's the same difference. But the problem with the mirror method is if your cup isn't like extremely smooth and you do the mirror method and you've got like chunks of glitter sticking out of your cup, once you slide that transfer paper off, then you're going to see your water slide is going to end up start breaking up because you've got those chunks sticking out through your chunks of glitter sticking out. So I don't always advise using that mirror method, especially for people who's new at doing this. That's the reason why I didn't do it. Do you epoxy once it dry? Yes. At this point, you go ahead and put your epoxy on it. Well, once it dry, then you go ahead and put your epoxy on it. At that point. How much would you sell that for? How much would I sell this specific cup for? Or the water slide? I mean, it's contingent upon your market as far as how much you sell your cups for. What I sell my cups for may not work for the market that you sell your cups for because you may be in a small country town. In your small country town, people don't want to spend that much money. You can't get upset about it. It's just there's not enough money there. But here in Austin, we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of people making them, so you just keep up with the market rate. The market for these go for anywhere between 35 to 45 to $50, contingent upon whatever it is you want to sell it at for. But my suggestion is to always do a market analysis for whatever it is that you're selling, to make sure that you're not too far over it and you're not too far under it. You never want to undersell yourself. You never want to undersell yourself, because at some point you're going to get a lot of business with underselling yourself, and then you're going to turn around and get pissed off at yourself because you undersold yourself. And then when you get ready to go up on your prices, you're going to end up losing your customers, because they're going to be like, oh, well, you used to be cheap and I supported you when you were nothing. Now you're something, and now you want to go up on your prices. I found that out the hard way. Do you have to seal it again once it dries? No, once it dries, the heat to the cup is not going to come off. At that point, you can just go ahead and epoxy over it. Don't be calling her out on the live. Sharonda, it's 2020. That's all I have to say. I just got my package. Thank you. I'm glad it came. Be nice to you in 2020. Thank you for the tip. Thank you. I have to go, but I'll rewatch later. Yeah, it'll be on here, so you can always go back over. Do you epoxy the entire cup or just the water slide? No, you epoxy the complete cup, not just the water slide. Epoxy the complete cup. If you don't epoxy the complete cup and you only epoxy just the water slide, then you're just going to have a thick coating over the water slide. You have to epoxy the whole cup again, because you'd want it to lay on there evenly. You don't want it to be on there uneven. So always make sure you epoxy the complete cup and not just part of the cup. Yeah, that's a really good business tip. I'm telling you, man. If you start out, understand that if you start, my best or my knowledge, or this is just me personally, if you're just now beginning to start making cups and you're wanting to sell cups, your best people to sell cups to is your family. You don't give it away to them. You don't just give it to them because you're practicing it, because you're trying, because they're going to always expect for you to just give it to them. Always sell it to them. You can always sell it to them at a discounted rate only because they are family and they know that you're starting out. So if I were just starting, I just made this cup and I know I got a couple of bloopers or whatever the case it is, and the cup isn't perfect, but yet I want to sell it, I'll probably sell this cup to my family for like at least $10 or $15 so I can get my cup and my material back out of it. But you never sell to a customer for cheap just because you just started. If you're not ready to sell, then don't sell. Don't start out in the market undercutting your neighbor next door to sell cups. If I sell these cups for $40 and my neighbor next door decides to make cups and she turn around and sell hers for $25, she's the one that's going to be getting hurt in the end, because when she get ready to go up on her prices, her customers are going to run because, oh, I used to get it at this. I'm telling you, that is the worst, the worst. What water slide paper did you use again? I used the Hayes Paper Company, the transparent inkjet paper, where you do a live on cup from the start. I do those pretty much right now when we do our one-on-ones, or our 5-on-1s is when we do our individual cups from start to finish. It's kind of hard to do a cup from start to finish on live because it actually takes quite a while in order for it to go from start to finish. But this is the water slide paper that I use, and this is how it came out for me. So I can say I'm really happy about it. Hopefully this tutorial assisted you or helped you in any way that it possibly can. If you have any more questions, comments, concerns beyond this point, you can always reach out to any of the admins. Unfortunately, Joy is still an admin at this point, but she is in the midst of moving, so she may not be accessible to a computer. So you can always reach out to Sharonda Richardson, myself, my wife, Kristen Moore, and Joanna and Rita Burrell. So you can always reach out to any of them. If they don't know the answer, then of course they'll get in touch with me. I don't always reply back whenever you message me, only because I have a lot of people that answer me and I try to get back to you as soon as possible. But the admins, like, we're in a group, so we always conversing. So if they have any questions, comments, concerns that they don't understand, then they'll always come to me. And if I don't know something, then I'll always go to them and they'll give me the answer to whatever it is that I need. Thank you for the water slide show. Hopefully your back get better. Yeah, I'm hoping it gets better too. I'm actually about to go get my medication because it just ain't gonna work. I am in excruciating pain right now. But I just wanted to hop on and show y'all that. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns beyond this, please feel free to inbox me. I don't bite. I don't think any question is a stupid question. If you're working in the industry, one last thing. If you're working in this industry and I've taught you how to make cups, or if I taught you how to make shirts, or if I taught you anything, please, if anybody else were to ask you a question, feel free to give them an answer. I think it's absurd for me to sit here and spend so much of my time to teach you guys on how to do this. And when somebody asks you how you do it, the first thing you say is you don't know, or you just don't want to answer it. That's not good business. That's not good business at all. You won't be blessed because of that. I'm sitting here teaching you for free, but yet you're going to turn around and charge somebody else to teach them. That's not right. That's just my personal 2 cents. I was watching a video and the person was like, oh, you know, I can show you some of it, but I'm not going to show you all of it. Come on. Even if they do start making cups, it's not going to hurt your business. You're still going to be blessed because you're willing to teach them how to do it. I hold classes here locally in Austin quite often at a shop just down the road. I am doing tutorials. I do YouTube videos. I do Periscope. Like, I do as much as I can in order to teach anybody the business that want to know. I don't look at any of you guys as being my competition. I don't look at it as being competition. I look at it as, oh, well, now that this person knows how to do it, can you show me how you do this, or can you show me how you do that? I never turn down any business orders just because I'm packed and I'm busy and I don't have time to make cups. You've got almost 2,500 people on this page. If you've conversed with them, you can always pass business off to them. So you never want to turn down business. If somebody were to ask you, hey, I need 20 cups and I need them dead, blah, 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 you can always go on the page and look at these people cups. And if you like the way that the cups work out, message them, hey, you know, I've got this big order coming up. Can you help me? Can you make 10 of them? I'm going to make 10 of them and split the profits. It makes no sense to just letting that money run away. When people inbox me and tell me that they want shirts and I know that I don't have time to make shirts, I have a friend that's just down the road. Hey, I need these shirts made. I have another friend that's just on the opposite side. Can you make these shirts? Never turn down the business. Always make sure that business stay within the craft family, okay? If you have any questions, comments, concerns, inbox me, talk to me, and we can go from there. And until then, I'll probably be back on a little bit later. You guys have a good day.